Good morning. Good morning. Well, I want to thank Pastor Kitney for giving me this opportunity and for sharing this pulpit. I want to thank Lee for that wonderful song. And this is Religious Liberty Week, and we're trying to celebrate religious liberty. Right. Let me tell you a story, and we'll go from there. This is a story about a gentleman by the name Wesley Autry. Wesley Autry. This was on January 2nd, 2007, at a subway station in Manhattan. He was with his daughters, two young daughters, on the platform. And he noticed something, and there were a few other passengers that had noticed that there was a young film student, 20-year-old young film student, who went into a seizure. And as he was convulsing on the platform, people tried to help him, but soon Cameron Peter, the student with seizure, fell off the platform onto the tracks. Now, there was an oncoming train, and someone had to do something, and something had to be done very quickly. Wesley, without a thought, jumped onto the rails, pulled Cameron together, and lay right on top of him. And just that very second, the train just went by. Even though the engineer applied the brakes, all the cars except two went right over them. And finally, when they recovered both of them, they were both safe. And Wesley, on his cap, there was some grease at the back of his cap. It was that close. The question I have for us today is, when you think about religious liberty, we always think about end-time persecutions. We always think about, persecutions in India, persecutions in Pakistan, persecutions in Africa, North Korea. We need to do that. But that's not everything there is to religious liberty. You see, as Christians, we are called upon to defend our beliefs on a day-to-day basis. Something like what Wesley did on a day-to-day basis. Right? And with this we call the liberty in Jesus. Okay? Now, I've spent some time thinking about this, and I've thought to myself, if I'm going to defend something, and if I'm going to defend something with my life, then what in the world am I going to defend? And that's what I'm hoping that I can convey to you and also preach to myself on what is it that I'm trying to defend. And then finally, how do I defend it? Because that's the general idea. That's what we're trying to do today. Right? Now, to answer this question on what we're trying to defend, just think about this. We're trying to do something in a way that Jesus would look at it and say, that's what I would do. That's what I would do. Right? I spent some time thinking on this idea, on trying to defend, and I have spent a good number of years, and today I would like to share that with you. Right? Trying to defend something that I truly believe, trying to defend something that is a benefit to others but a cost to me. Benefit to others but a cost to me. Isn't that what Jesus did on this planet? Which is benefit to someone but a cost to himself. Right? But to understand this, I have to take you back. I have to help you understand some things And then once we get that, then it becomes a whole lot easier to understand. Okay, so bear with me, and I'll walk you through this process. And once we get this, we'll be doing fine. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're trying to understand what the human nature is. We're trying to understand the nature of God himself. And everything that I say is biblical. I found something wonderful in the Bible, and it's called the book of Romans and the book of Galatians. And so I'm going to walk you through some of these things, and I'm going to bring some evidence in how we try to understand these concepts using neuroscience. I'm a neuroscientist, and I deal with human decision making. And every time I read the Bible, I find these wonders in the Bible that I can explain with neuroscience. Okay, so I'm going to spend a few minutes on that, and once we get these concepts, we are going to do well. Okay, so here's the I'd like to come down. All right. Now I'm going to explain something, and this is something that each of us can understand. There are two parallel systems in the human brain. Very simple processes, but very powerful processes, right? The first one is called what's called as a conscious decisions. Now, how does that work? Let's say you take your family to a restaurant, and you're trying to decide from the menu which one would you like to pick. And you're going to go through the menu, and you're going to think about it, and you're going to decide based on your past experiences, and then you're going to say, this is what I like to eat today. That's a conscious decision. Or those of you who are in college, and you're trying to decide to which college you want to go, you look at the various colleges, you look at all the options, you decide which one would work well for you and your interests, and you pick one. That's a conscious decision. On the other side, there is another kind of decision which we call as an automatic decision. Things that we don't even look at it, things we don't even think about, things that happen on an automatic basis. For example, how many of you ever thought about trying to decide, should I put my left leg first or right leg first when I start walking? It just happens, right? That's the way it is. Over time, this is the way it is. Now, absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that. We need both these systems for us to lead a normal life. Right? So we walk, we put on our clothes. Nobody ever thinks about how am I going to put it on, because that's what we do on a daily basis. Two great, wonderful systems. One is a conscious system. The other one is an automatic system. But here comes the problem. And the problem is that sometimes these automatic systems get hijacked. They get hijacked. Now, what do I mean by hijacked? What happens is when you do something, especially a thought or an idea that you do over and over, it becomes a habit, and it sticks with you. It's very hard to get rid of that. Okay, so think about this. Now, I'm trying to explain something. It's a biblical concept, and it's found in Romans 7, verse 17. Romans 7, verse 17. There is a conundrum here, a puzzle that Paul is talking about. And the puzzle simply says, I want to do something that is good, but I don't do it. But the evil that I don't want to do, that's what I do. Is that right? That's exactly what it is. Now, what's happening here is a conflict between these two systems. A system that is very conscious, and I say, I don't want to do the evil, I want to do the good. And then comes my automatic system that says, that's what you're going to do, even though I did not want to do. You see, we are stuck here. And this is what sin does. puts us in a position where we want to do something good, but we're just unable to do that because it's in the very nature of who we are. The very nature of who we are. Now, as we talk about the human nature, I want to talk a little bit more about it, and it's called the heart, as we see in the Bible. For the most part, the heart, the Bible has different meanings for that, but for the most part, this is what the Bible means. It simply says it's your emotions and feelings. They're not the same. They're not the same. Emotions and feelings. Feelings is what you feel you're conscious about. Emotions are something that happens automatically. So we're seeing another automatic process here. There's absolutely nothing wrong with good emotions. The general feeling that people have is that we rationalize, we think about it, we make great decisions. The moment we bring in emotions, it's an irrational decision. That is not true. You need good emotions to make good decisions. The problem comes when these emotions run away from us, when they get hijacked from us. And then that becomes a problem. Let me give you an example of that. Right? Now, you're a student, and when you're a student, you have to study for an exam. Right? Now, as you're studying and as you get closer to the exam, you're going to feel a little nervous inside. That's your emotional feeling inside. And some moderate amount of feeling like that, a feeling of nervousness, is good for you because that's when your memory is very good and you tend to perform well. Now, when it runs away from you and it gets to a point, then that becomes a bad thing. It's called panic. And once you panic, there's nothing you can do. It's gone. It's out of here. Right? Now, there are systems in our brain, and all decisions are made in the nervous system. There's no doubt about that. Now, when this happens, when we let these things run away, it is very difficult to change. It gets hijacked. Now, the book of Romans talks about what's called as flesh and carnal. What it really means is flesh and carnal is when these good systems get hijacked. And we call that sin. When it gets beyond the control, if you look at the fruits of the Spirit, every one of them is a hijacked emotion or a hijacked idea. And this is the problem that Paul is facing in trying to decide why is it that the good I want to do, I cannot do. The evil that I don't want to do, that's what I do. Right? Now, the next thing that I want to talk to you about is what's called as the Spirit, this time with a small s. With a small s. A spirit meaning, if it's in our system, I don't know much about the soul. As much as I've tried to understand, I don't know much about it. But I do understand that we as human beings have something called a spirit within us. And this is with a small letter S. The big letter S is the Spirit of God. Now, how does God communicate with us? And I figured out it has to be between a spirit-to-spirit conversation. Now, if you bought a product, and whether it was made in the United States or made in China, at some point, someone who made it will put a stamp on it that says what? Made in the United States or made in China. I believe when we were created, God put a stamp in us so that He could keep communicating to us, and that's the Spirit. Now, why is that important? Because this is how decisions are made. The way decisions are made is that these two parallel systems will act independently and sometimes in sequence. But what controls that is your spirit. There is something that will tell you, and there is only one type of spirit that can occupy at one time. And this is why God said you cannot serve both. Either you serve God or you serve the devil. And that's what will control everything else that happens from there. So when you think about spirit, it's not only how you get communicate or how God communicates with you, but it's also who controls everything else that happens in your life. Now, there is one fundamental thing that happens, and that is called love. And this will become a common theme, as you'll see for the rest of the presentation. And when I say love, I mean there is one more thing that can control the other systems. And that is when you love someone and you truly love someone, things don't get hijacked. It's a very natural, normal thing to do. So that's all I'm going to say about that for now, but we'll come back and we'll talk about this in just a few minutes. All right, so now we're talking about, let me put this all together. Let me put all this together in a diagram. I teach at college, so I have to do this, right? So trying to help you understand this process, right? So I'm going to put a diagram, and so here it is. So this is the human nature, and this is called the flesh, right? These are hijacked automatic systems, hijacked emotional systems that once that happens, there's not a whole lot you can do. This we call the human nature. Deep inside, that's who we are. It's the flesh. If you read Romans and Galatians, that's pretty much what Paul talks about and what's flesh, right? Now, there's another system, and we call that the mind. This is the conscious mind that we're talking about. Now, as a general rule, the conscious mind has some control over the flesh. But once it gets hijacked, that's the end of that. That's the end of that. We call that what? Bad habits. And this is why it's very difficult to do that. I'll give you an example of this, and this is not, I don't call this sin at all. We all struggle with this, and here's how it works. Let's say you're dieting, and you know in your mind, this is not what I'm supposed to eat, or what I'm not going to eat because I decided that's not good for me, or whatever reason it is. And then you're right in that buffet line, and you see it. And it's staring back at you, right? And then you say, I got to control this, I got to control this. But the next thing you know, boy, that tastes delicious, right? And that's exactly what this system is, right? I'm not talking about a hijacked system yet, but it does get hijacked, and that's very deep within us, and that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Right? But then there is something called a Spirit of God. So every time you see this red line, which you'll see soon, every time you see the red line, think about it as the Spirit of God. And how does God communicate? Well, God communicates through spirit to spirit. Okay? Now, what controls the mind and the flesh? We call it a spirit. Right? And if you look at it, this is how we know, this is how we believe that this is how God talks to us, right? Now, there's one little problem here, and that is sometimes the flesh that Paul is talking about will control your mind, will in fact put on the brakes, and that's about it. And now let me bring this to reality. Have you seen sometimes when people get so angry or filled with hatred, and then you can't think about it because this is it. It does not go, you can't, the mind is unable to put those brakes that it's supposed to, and then everything gets out of hand. It gets hijacked, right? So that's the thing that I'm trying to talk about today, and I'm going to walk you through this process on what is this true liberty in Jesus. But to understand that, this is what we need to know, right? So let me ask you one question. Do we have any confusion on this, or should I say it again? All right? So every time you see a black solid line, it simply means that the flesh is making the decisions. Every time you see the blue line, it says the mind has some control over that, right? And this is true. And then there is the Spirit that communicates, and then the Spirit can actually take over our lives, right? It's one or the other. You just have to pick and choose which one you want in your life, right? Now, this is interesting because this is how the brain works, right? So this is the human nature. Now, I also told you we'll talk about God's nature. So this is God's nature. We've got to tie all of these together soon, right? So the first thing is God is a spirit. God is a spirit with a capital S, right? And we know that from the Bible. It says we ought to worship him in spirit and in truth, right? And so there's no question about that, and that's how God is. The second thing is God creates. That's natural to God. Whatever he does, we call it creation. But with every creation comes comes with laws. Now, those of you who have invented something, you know that there are some laws that govern your own invention. They will call them specifications. We say this is it. This is what you can do with this gadget, and that's about all. Anything more than that, you're going to break it. And God understands that these are laws, and this is the way it is. Now, I'm a scientist, and this is what we study, the laws that are out there that God has instituted, right? That is instituted. The third thing is God loves, period. God loves, period. Now, when we talked about the human nature, I said there is one thing, and that is called love, that can override some of these systems. Love, it's a strange, strange phenomenon. And here it is, there is a God here that we call God is love. And as someone put it, there's nothing you can do to make God love you anymore. And there's nothing you can do to make God love you any less. Because that's the way he is, just full of love, right? And the wonders of this is that love translates back into the human mind, and when you are filled with this love, things change. Things change within you. And that's what we will see soon. All right? So another thing is, now that we have some basis on the way human beings are, the way God is, what is this true liberty in Jesus that I should defend on a daily basis, not at the end of times, not in Korea, not in Pakistan, but here, right here. What is it that I need to defend? And if I have to defend something, then I need to know what is it that I'm defending, correct? All right, so the first question we're going to tackle is, what is this true liberty in Jesus? And then once we're done with that, we'll tackle the second question, and that is how to defend this liberty in Jesus, right? So here it is. This is the true liberty in Jesus. And I'm going to walk you through those lines that we talked about. So keep in mind, when you see a black line, a solid black line, it simply means that's the flesh. These are hijacked automated systems. Hijacked automated systems that's within us. And the Bible clearly calls that sin. And when you see a blue line, we're talking about the mind. Now, all these, mind is controlled by certain laws that that God has instituted. All right, so here it is. This is heaven. This is right from the beginning. This is heaven. God is the Spirit. Now, if there's something about God, he doesn't sit idle. It's his human nature. I mean, it's his nature to keep creating. And when he creates with certain laws. And so here is God sitting in heaven, and he says, I got to do something here. And so he says, let's create man. Now, this is an interesting phenomenon, because when God created man, he did a marvelous job. Now, if you look in the book of Genesis, the first few chapters, the first chapter especially, and every time there was life involved in the creation, God spoke twice. God spoke twice. Every time there was life involved, he spoke twice. And on the sixth day, he spoke 3 times because it involved more life. And finally, he said this was very good. Right? So here is God who created man, and with it came the automated systems. With it came the conscious systems, but not hijacked. Now, so that's why I put a dotted line, because it's not a hijacked system. This is where it's perfect. And now, there's something about it regarding the communications. And this is around the time when God walked with Adam and Eve. And we call that walking in the Spirit. Spirit to spirit. Walking in the Spirit. But with it also came laws. So when God said to Adam and Eve, "Of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat, for thou shalt surely die." So if you create something, with it comes laws, right? So here it is where they are walking with God on a daily basis. We call that walking in the Spirit with a capital S. But there's something else that God did, and this is the beauty and the wonder of his creation. And he said, "I will give them the power to choose." The power to choose. And this is what we mean by power to choose. And I have held 2 newborn babies, my own. And every time I walked with this newborn baby in my hand, from the delivery room to the nursery, a thought hit my mind. I'm sure it hit your mind too. And that is, I can love this child all I want. But one day, he could choose to reject me. He could choose to reject me. And this is the thing that God went through when he created human beings. And this is the true power of choice, where he created these 2 wonderful human beings here on the planet with all the love that he is, the love period. And yet he created something within us that says that this creation can choose to reject their own creator. Right? So now this is the context that we are in a very perfect place. And then unfortunately, we chose. Right? So here's what happened. Now sin became biological. So gone was the time when the default was here, when you walked in the Spirit. The default now is here. It's now here. And this is why in Psalms 51:5, David says, "In sin I was conceived." You see, you're not a sinner because you sinned. You're not a sinner because you sinned. You sin because you're a sinner. Because you're a sinner. Because it's deep inside. It's biological. This is how it is. This is the way we were as soon as sin entered into us. Now, but then God is still God of love. You got to have something going on to bring us back to this state of perfection. We lost that walks with the Spirit. Why the default now is here. And something took hold of us. Now there's something that happens. So just imagine this. If we didn't have any laws, remember God creates but with laws. Now if we didn't have laws, then we would all murdered everybody else, correct? Because then there's nothing to hold us back. And this is what happened, because when Cain murdered Abel, he said, "I don't do this. I'm not responsible for that." God did not want that. And therefore, he instituted some laws till a time when when the promised one will come and take care of it all. And this is what you do when you love someone. You have a plan B. And the plan B here is, it's true that human beings chose to go one way, but we're going to bring them back. And that's called love. It comes naturally. It comes naturally to God. Okay, so this is where it is, the promise here. And what's the promise here? The promise is very simple, that at some point Jesus would come and he would lay down his life. And that when you and I believe in that, we will have this true liberty. This true liberty, right? And then there was the sacrificial system that God instituted. The sacrificial system trying to point to one and only one thing, and that is there's going to be a sacrifice in the future. That there is going to be someone who's going to come. God himself will come one day and die for you and me. Will die for you and me and try to bring us back to this perfection, right? So up till this time, we were governed under the law. We were under the law. We had the sacrificial system that God had instituted for us, right? So this is where we are with the promise. And then came Jesus Christ. It was a wonderful event, I would imagine. Now, again, God had this conundrum, but that Jesus Christ would have to do a couple of things. First, Jesus Christ had to fulfill the law. He had to deny the flesh. And he had to walk in the Spirit. Three things that is absolutely essential for us to lead a pretty normal life from now on in Jesus Christ. Again, this is the liberty in Jesus Christ, right? And Jesus had to show that this is liberating in the first place. And that is to deny the flesh, to walk in the Spirit, and to fulfill the law. But it didn't go as well, right, as planned. In the sense, human beings did not want that. But God had a plan, right? But Jesus had to go through this process for you and me. This is what you do when you love someone. And so here's this concept, again, back to that love, right from love that was instituted in us. And love in the sense that is benefit to others, but a cost to me. Benefit to others, but a cost to me. Same thing that God had to go through when he sent Jesus Christ. Benefit to someone, but a cost to me. And now here's Jesus Christ on earth trying to do the same thing in love. It's benefit to someone else, but a cost to me. Right? And so here we are with Jesus Christ. He showed us the way on how to walk with the Spirit. Now this kind of explains why almost everything that Jesus talks about, he always talked about my relationship with my Father. He gave us examples about the vine. Unless you are connected with the vine, then you can't bear fruit. And almost all the parables are talking about this relationship between him and his Father. Between him and his Father. An example for us to emulate. To say, unless you do that, you cannot love. You cannot do this. Right? So, this is Jesus Christ and the birth, and then Jesus died. Now, you have a choice after the death. Because Jesus paid the price for us. And you have a choice here. The choice is very simple. The choice at this point is either you walk after the flesh or you walk after the Spirit. That is, walk in the Spirit. Remember, that's the only two options you have. If you choose to operate under the flesh, then these automated systems will take over you, and that's what it is. But if you choose to walk after the Spirit, then you have that control through the Spirit. Remember, I told you these two systems are controlled by the Spirit. And you can have only one Spirit at a time. And this have true practical meaning for us. So when you think about this present day, this is after Jesus Christ died. He paid it all for us, and he's asked us to do two things. Remember, the law was only instituted up till this point because Jesus took care of the law. He took care of the law. He fulfilled the law. And he walked in the Spirit, and he denied the flesh. Now the question is, well, then what happens? But remember, when God says something, it is the law. Now you don't just throw the law away, right? So here we are at a position where God has shown us the way. Now you can do a couple of things, right? I mean, you can try to keep the law, and you try to do that, but you sinned. And the penalty for sin is death. But here's an option that by believing in Jesus Christ, and accepting that sacrifice, you are saved. Let me make it more practical. On this great judgment day, you stand in front of the judge, and he says, well, here's Ravi Jillapalli, let's read his stuff. And then they bring about 15, 20 books of mine that they've written all the stuff that I've done. And how do you plead? I plead guilty, right? I mean, in the sense, that's what I did. And what's my punishment? Death. But I have a way out. So I tell the judge to God, say, if you're going to judge me, I'm done. But instead of me, can you judge him? Can you judge Jesus Christ for me? Now, will Jesus pass the test for me, for you? Yes or no? Yes. And then you pass the test. Right? Now, the real question is, okay, I understand that Jesus died for me, and then he stands in place of me. But how do I lead a practical Christian life? Now, this is what the true liberty in Jesus is. And when you talk about the true liberty in Jesus, as the Bible calls this bondage. So if you go to Galatians 5:1, it says, walk through this, or take this true liberty that you have in Jesus Christ and get away from this bondage that you have always been in, which is what we call as the flesh. Right? So this is where we are with the present day. So you have two choices. Either you walk in the Spirit, or you go try to keep the law and then try to do the good works, but it's still not going to get you anywhere. The Bible calls it what? Filthy rags. When you try to keep the law on your own, right? So how do I lead? I mean, to me, the gospel is the most practical thing. Christianity is not a philosophy. It is as practical as it gets, right? So now the question is, either you can go this way or you can go this way, and those are your two choices, right? Now, Jesus showed us how to walk in the Spirit, which is the right way to go, or you can just, by default, you're still here. This is by human nature. That's what we will do, right? The whole concept of this is that in the future, when Jesus returns, we will be transformed. And we don't know how it's going to look like, but this is what heaven is. We'll still be in the Spirit, and all we know is Jesus, that we know from the Bible, that we will be changed. And I, as a neuroscientist, I can't tell you what it is. But I think it'll be beautiful. It'll be just wonderful. And I'm sure there'll be some identity still left in us and something like that. All right, but now I'm going to walk you into, so as Christians, what do we do? So if this is the true liberty in Jesus, what am I supposed to do? Right? I've accepted Jesus Christ. I believe that he is my Savior, that on the judgment day, that God is going to judge Jesus for me. But from now till that time, what am I supposed to do? So this is Christianity in practice. The Bible talks about works, and I'm going to explain what that works means. especially James 2:26. It says, what does it say? Anyone remembers? It says, faith without works is dead. So now I'm confused here. On one side, people say, well, you can't keep the law. If you keep the law, you're going to be such filthy rags. On the other side, it says faith without works is dead. Let me see if I can solve this problem. And actually, Romans has the solution to that. Romans and Galatians. Right? And so here it is. There are two types of works. The first work depends on who's the driver of your life. Who is driving your life? If self is what's driving your life, then this is where you would go. So this is you, this is me. We are the drivers. We say, God, just go back from where you came from. I'm in charge. And when you're in charge, you try to keep the law. You try to do good. There are a whole lot of people in this world that try to do that. Nothing wrong with that. But the Bible is very clear that there is a direction in which you need to go. So here's the law. You keep the law, some good works. We call this, Jesus called it, or God calls it, just filthy rags. You still will face the same problem. In fact, there are things in the Bible that says, that Jesus said one time, and said, Lord, Lord, we did this for you, we did that for you. And what does God say? And the two in your name. The two in your name. So, I know you're not. I know you're not. Right? So then is there another option here? And the answer is yes. This is by faith, because you need that. The only way, and that is, I believe that if He brought me this far, He's going to take me all the way through. If He promised me that He's paid it all for me, then I believe that. And this is the faith that I have, that the future is, the way I go in the future is by faith. So here's by faith, but now who's the driver? The Spirit. The red line that I was talking to you about. Now the Spirit is controlling your life, it's communicating to you, and you let the Spirit control your life. You let the Spirit control your life. Now what happens? In the Spirit, the Bible is very clear about this, you love. Again, this is another common theme right through. Love in human beings, love in God. Here's another love. As you walk in the Spirit, it's all about love. And this is why when Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? He gave two. Right? The first one is what? Love your Lord with all your heart. Now you know what the heart is. With all your mind and with all your soul. Okay? Now he said, wait, that's not the only thing. There's more, right? There's more. He said there's another one. And that is what? Love your neighbor as yourself. In doing so, you have fulfilled the law. In doing so, you have fulfilled the law. So here is love in the Spirit. You're supposed to walk in the Spirit. The outpouring of the Spirit is just abundant now. Remember the time when Jesus left, He said, wait for a while here, and I will send you the Comforter. You see, in the olden times, we had to figure out this. If you read the Bible, it says, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon so-and-so. And it's not that the Spirit of the Lord was not available, but people just did not want it because we were living in the flesh at that time. Now, the Spirit of the Lord is available freely for all of us. Freely. It's available for all of us. And so this is that through the Spirit, you love your God, love your fellow being, and then comes good works. This is the direction. This is the direction where the Spirit leads us to do things. And in doing so, you have fulfilled the law. Let me explain this, and I'll make it a little more concrete to us. Now, those of you who are in love, right, young kids, And those of us who are married for a while now. Right? So here it is. When you love someone, just go back to the times when you're madly in love. Right? When you're in madly love. And did you ever think, man, I love this person, but the Bible says I shouldn't kill, I shouldn't tell lies, I shouldn't covet, I shouldn't commit adultery. When you love someone, does this even come to you? It's automatic. When you're in the Spirit and you truly love, you don't murder, you don't tell lies, you don't commit adultery, you don't covet. That's what love does. Deep inside our system, this love that's connected, though, it has to be connected to the Spirit, is what fulfills the law. Now, this is why God summarized it all into two. And he said, if you love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, when you do that, do you have a graven image? Do you take the Lord's name in vain? Don't you keep the Sabbath? Don't you honor your parents? It comes automatically. Now remember, God does not, when he creates the human beings with all these laws, he didn't just take them and throw it out. That's who he is. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the law. The law is fantastic. But how you keep the law has changed. There's one way. You go through faith to the Spirit, becomes your driver. You love, and with it comes good works. All right, the next question, this is my second question that I was talking to you about, is how do you defend this? How do you defend this liberty in Christ? And the answer is simple. There's only one way to do it. Defend it in love. Defend it in love. Now, I started this talk, this presentation, we're talking about Wesley Autry. And Wesley was asked after, he said, why did you do it? He said, I saw someone in help that needed help, and I just felt I had to do the right thing. Now, when you love someone, that's what you do. That's what you do. Then when you defend something, that's what you do. You still defend it in love. Because we have no other choice. No other choice. This, no government and no political authority can take it away from us. This true liberty in Jesus Christ. This is what we have. There may be a cost to us, and that's okay. This is temporary. There's another way to defend it, and this is one of the hot button issues that we have around every political season and every political time. As laws change, as laws are being contemplated on being changed, what do? You still defend them in love. You still defend them in love. You have no other choice. There's no other way to do this. And this is the distortion that we've been talking about. And that is, we believe that there's something that we can do to change these things. And if we can't do it, then we are going to take matters into our own hand and we're going to defend them. No. There's only one way to do it. Jesus defended everything in love. He expects us to defend the same thing in love. Now, just think about this. When they were taking Jesus away, and Peter immediately got out his knife, and he was bad at stabbing people. And he took out his knife and he cut some fellow's ear. And when Jesus said, put that thing away. What have you learned in my whole time here? I never did that. I always defended in love. Always defended in love. One of the biggest issues, and especially political issues, and since this is a religious liberty week, and that is, there's another lesson to be learned, and we learn from Jesus Christ. And that is, when he was in front of Pilate. And Pilate kind of taunted him, saying about this is what they're accusing you of. And then Jesus simply answered, my kingdom is not of this world. But usually we stop right there. There's more to that. He said, if my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would fight about it, would fight to prevent this. But that's not what he wanted. You see, our kingdom is elsewhere. Our kingdom is elsewhere. If we don't know, and if we can't learn to live with each other now, how are we going to live in heaven? You do it in love here because you're going to do exactly the same thing in heaven. You're still going to do it in love. Right? And I don't want to walk away today. I don't want to walk away today saying that, things are, fears of persecutions and fears of this and government laws and things like that. Jesus never leaves us without a promise. He's never left us without a promise. And I'm always reminded about the 3 friends of Daniel. And they were given a choice to worship the graven image, but they chose not to. And they were very clear about what they told King Nebuchadnezzar. They said, look, you can throw us and put us into the fire if you want, but this God who we believe will deliver us. And it didn't stop right there. And he said, if he doesn't, we're still not going to do this. We're still not going to do this. Why? Because there's a life to come. There's another place we are going to. And that's the place we're all looking forward to. And that's the wondrous place. So I'm going to leave you with this promise, and there are 2 texts that I'm going to say. And this is from Romans 8:31. He says, what shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? I find even more comforting. And this is the commission that God has given us that says, teach them to observe all things whatsoever I commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. End of the world. I don't fear persecutions. You worry, you think about those things. But this is not our planet. This is not our home. We're always looking for, and as the song says, we're just passing through. We're just passing through. And we're looking for a better place. But unless we walk in the Spirit now, believe it or not, that heaven up there is going to be a boring place. Unless we walk in the Spirit. So let me close this by saying, when we think about religious liberty, you cannot enjoy religious liberty unless you experience the true liberty in Jesus Christ. Unless you experience the true liberty in Jesus Christ, you cannot experience this religious liberty. And that's the hope. And that's the privilege to walk in the Spirit. Thank you.